Would you believe that in history, China actually had the chance to take over the American continent before the United States did? And they could have become a global superpower before any Western nation. There are records showing that a fleet called Zheng He's fleet reached the Americas long before Columbus, and it was a massive fleet. So today, I'm going to tell you this piece of history. The story of Zheng He. But let me turn off the effects first. This cold wind shot is too much. I can't keep them on for the whole clip, seriously. Whew, what am I even doing? Let me get my bangs back and return to normal. So I just found out that China's fleet about 500 years ago was massive, so huge that it had the potential to dominate the world. It was a fleet that could carry tens of thousands of people. How did they manage that 500 years ago? And they were able to invent longitude technology, which allowed them to create maps for navigating the world. But then, why didn't China end up ruling the world? Why did Zheng He's fleet just disappear? And not only did the fleet vanish, but China itself, despite having the potential to basically own the world at that time, ended up closing itself off, shutting down the country to the point where it became extremely poor for decades. I really wanted to know about this, so I did some research. If anyone wants to support me, my research on Zheng He's fleet was actually really fun. If you'd like to support me, you can do so via this QR code. But if you can't scan it, that's totally fine. Just watching this video to the end is enough. You're awesome, Finzai Money Monster. So Zheng He was a eunuch in the Ming Dynasty's royal court, appointed by Emperor Yongle to lead a massive fleet on voyages across the South China Sea and the Indian Ocean during From 1403 to 1419, the fleet, led by Zheng He, had as many as 2,868 ships in the convoy. The largest ships were called treasure ships, or Chinese treasure ships, which were between 70 and 100 meters long. That's almost as long as a running track, and nearly the size of modern ocean liners. In Zheng He's fleet, the biggest ships, the treasure ships, numbered up to 63 vessels. Each of those 63 ships could carry as many as 500 to 600 people. When you add in all the smaller ships that were part of Zheng He's fleet, the total number of people on a single expedition could reach up to 27,870. With that kind of scale, Zheng He's fleet was absolutely massive, so huge that no European fleet at the time could compare. And like I mentioned, Zheng He's voyages took place between 1403 and 1419, right? If you compare that, Columbus set sail in 1492, which was 70 years after Zheng He. And if you compare the size, Columbus only had 3 ships. The main one, the Santa Maria, was just 18.9 meters long, while Zheng He's ships were 100 meters. That's why Zheng He's fleet was the largest the world had ever seen at that time. Whenever Zheng He's fleet arrived somewhere, the local kings or ambassadors would come out to greet them as a way to show that they acknowledged China's authority, while China would present them with gifts and open up trade routes between the two sides. The kings who accepted China's authority and agreed to form friendly ties would usually travel back with Zheng He's fleet to continue building diplomatic relations. But if any country resisted or refused to recognize China's authority, Zheng He's fleet would send down tens of thousands of troops to suppress them. Once they had subdued the resistance, they would capture the ambassadors or even the king and take them back to face punishment. When I read up to this point, I was like, I had so many questions. For example, Zheng He's fleet was huge, right? And it was so powerful. So why didn't China use Zheng He's fleet to colonize other lands, like the Western countries, like England and Spain did? And why, when Zheng He's fleet supposedly reached the Americas long before Columbus, didn't they just take over those new lands? Zheng He's massive fleet traveled the world. So where did all the records go? I'm mostly curious, why did Emperor Yongle build such a gigantic fleet just for alliances instead of conquest? Why did it have to be that big? If you were my teacher, Miss Safita, when I was a kid, you'd probably have a headache. Actually, as a kid, I never dared to ask questions. I was too scared of the teacher. So I went and found the answer myself. I was curious, so I looked it up. And there's a theory that when Emperor Yongle came to the throne, it was only the third reign of the Ming Dynasty. The Ming had only ruled for 3 generations. And before that, they'd been fighting the Mongols for over 100 years. So the Ming Dynasty wasn't all that stable yet. That's why Emperor Yongle established Zheng He's fleet and sent it out to Southeast Asia to assert his power. The Ming Dynasty is back in power now, so show some respect. Another theory says that when Emperor Yongle ascended the throne, he actually seized it from Emperor Zhongwen, who was his nephew. During that power struggle, the palace was set on fire, but Emperor Zhongwen's body was never found. So some people speculate that Emperor Zhongwen escaped to Southeast Asia. That's why Emperor Yongle supposedly created Zheng He's fleet, to search for Emperor Zhongwen. To execute him and eliminate any threats, some people speculate that Zheng He's fleet was created specifically to carry out the mission of getting rid of John Wen. Or, according to other theories, Zheng He's fleet was established to suppress pirates, since there were a lot of pirates at that time, especially around the various islands controlling the Strait of Malacca. Another theory is that Zheng He's fleet was sent out to search for gold, because after the Ming Dynasty was established, China needed a lot of capital to fund its wars with the Mongols. They also needed money to restore the Great Wall of China as a defensive line along the northern border. As for the claim that Zheng He's fleet discovered the Americas before Columbus, there is evidence recorded in the writings of Gavin Menzies in his book titled 1421, The Year China Discovered the World. He references ancient maps from Asia and the Middle East, which already indicated the location of the Americas. The book also states that these maps showing the location of the Americas were eventually passed into the hands of Europeans, which helped guide them to discover the New World. In this work, it's also mentioned where Zheng He's fleet had already traveled. The first place was the Cape of Good Hope in Africa. Zheng He's ships sailed across the South Atlantic Ocean, explored South America, and even went to Antarctica. After that, they sailed past Antarctica to Australia. This means Zheng He's fleet discovered Australia long before Captain Cook did. The second source is the Pacific, where they reached the west coast of the Americas, North, Central, and South America. There are records that this fleet traded with the Maya people on the Pacific coast and even established the first colony in America, because there is evidence of a Chinese junk shipwreck in the Sacramento River. California. The third place is that Zheng He's fleet had already explored the North Atlantic Ocean and established a colony in what is now called Rhode Island. Another piece of evidence is the Newport Tower, which is said to be an observation tower of the Chinese colony. As for how Zheng He's fleet was able to travel so extensively, Menzies' writings also state that it was because Zheng He's fleet was able to invent technology. They were able to successfully determine longitude, which allowed them to create complete maps of North and South America all the way to both poles. There's even a theory that Columbus's discovery was actually a result of the earlier explorations by the Chinese, specifically Zheng He's fleet, which had already mapped everything out. But if China was really that advanced, had such technology, could travel so far, and could draw such detailed maps, if they discovered new lands before anyone else, why didn't they just take over the world from the start? And on top of that, China ended up closing itself off for decades, over and over, to the point of poverty because of issues related to discrimination. Social classes emerged after Emperor Yongle passed away. The civil officials, who already disliked the eunuchs, began to push them out of government affairs. They gradually removed the eunuchs from their positions because the civil officials argued that most eunuchs who rose to high ranks didn't get there through merit or by passing the same exams as the officials did, but rather through the emperor's personal favor. So they started calling in eunuchs who held titles and ranks and then dismissed them from their posts. Another crucial action was the destruction of Zheng He's fleet and its records. One of the main reasons for destroying Zheng He's fleet and erasing its records was the contempt for the merchant class. At that time, anyone who was a merchant was considered the lowest class in Chinese society. People back then believed that merchants exploited others by making profits off the people. The civil officials also shared this mindset. If Zheng He's fleet had expanded its trade routes, it would have allowed the merchant class to make a huge amount of money. And if merchants became too wealthy, they might gain enough power to control society. So they cut it off at the source, preventing merchants from doing business on such a grand scale and accumulating too much wealth. This was the reason, and it created a chain reaction. China missed the chance to develop a merchant class that could become a middle class like Europe had. In Europe, the middle class grew into bankers and independent professionals, becoming the driving force behind the continent's civilization and prosperity. This growth eventually led to revolutions and allowed Europe to develop into a leading region. They were the first to undergo the Industrial Revolution, got rich first, and became wealthier than anyone else, eventually dominating the world. So, from what I've read, it's because China had a noble class that controlled and restricted the rise of the merchant class, preventing them from becoming wealthy and powerful at that time. Otherwise, today, we might never have seen Western countries become global superpowers at all.